I got a number of questions about this sermon title when people saw it, Forgiveness in the NCAA Tournament. No, it is not about the need for forgiveness of the referees in the Final Four game of the women when they played against Caitlin Clark in Iowa. That's just something that we let go of. Not everything requires forgiveness. Some things we just have to let go of. That does not rise to the level of the need for forgiveness. But I did get a lot of questions about how are you going to make these two, how are you making connections between forgiveness and the NCAA tournament? And the fact is I didn't have to do it at all. I have a friend, and we're going to call him Jeff. The reason we're going to call him Jeff is that's his name. Jeff is a very, very, very good friend of mine. Jeff and I have known each other for over 30 years. We went to grad school together at the University of Connecticut. We went through all kinds of difficult classes in economics and studies and intricate math and all that kind of stuff, and really worked through things together, but became very, very good friends. But became like lifelong friends because he was one of the most important people to me when my mom died 23 years ago. Because he had been through it. He didn't lose his mom, but he lost other people very close to him. He knew what it was like to lose a parent, to lose people who were very close to you. And so he knew what to say, and as importantly, he knew what not to say. He knew how to be there and how not to be there. He showed me that it was okay not to have to buy into all of the ideas that you have to find something redeeming in this moment right then, that it was okay to think the whole thing was just awful and just bad. And some of you who have heard any ounce of wisdom in your grief from me, much of that came from my wise friend, Jeff. And we don't talk to each other all the time, but he'd been there. And since he had been through it and been there, he was able to be there for me. And since we've been there together, we don't need to talk all the time. We just pick it up, right? Like that. Does anybody else have friends like that? Right, where you don't talk all the time, but as soon as you do talk, you pick up right where you left off. Or someone who was there for you when you were at your lowest. Someone who even your best friends might not have been able to be there in the same way because that other person just knew what you were going through and was there for you. That was Jeff. Now, Jeff is about 5'11". Actually, that's not true. He's about 5'8", but he said in order to share the story, I had to add a few inches to his height in the description. So there you go, my friend. But he's single, and he's a great guy if anybody's interested. But the thing that happened with Jeff at UConn was that he was betrayed bitterly. The leader of the program that he was in, it was part of the economics program, but it was a separate program from the one that I was going. So we had some classes, but he was a very specific kind of esoteric program, and a leader in the industry had recruited him there and made promises to him that were substantial. And once he got there, after he was there too long to kind of get out of the whole situation, because it's a multi-year program, the person refused to honor the commitments that they had made to him. They reneged on everything, not because there were budget cuts and the person wanted to do it and could have done it but didn't, but because they could have. They had all the stuff that they had, and they just decided they weren't going to do it. It set his career back. It broke his heart. Now, eventually, he recovered and did great. He's had a phenomenal career and has gone on to other education and worked in some of the top corporations and personally as a consultant and is a great guy and is a loving, forgiving person. But this thing ate at him for years. It still does. It still does. It's just something that was such a deep betrayal, and I can understand this. Like, I work on things that are difficult for me that I still have that have been there for a long time. I bet some of you can relate to that. But he's held on to pieces of this for so long. Now, his mom is a big NCAA basketball fan. And she did a pool this year. She does pools, and this is a pretty big one, right? So there's some stuff at stake here. And after the first round, she did really, really, really well in the first round. Like, okay, that's nice. Second round, did really, really, really well in the second round. In the third round, And the next round, also like, oh, we've got some opportunity here in this pool. She's doing exceptionally well. Gets to the finals. She's in the lead. The whole thing has UConn and Purdue in the finals in the men's final. If she wins, she's going to win this entire pool. She knew going into the tournament that UConn was the favorite. She knew that if UConn faced Purdue, that UConn was probably going to win. She was going to put UConn down, and then she remembered that UConn had done her son Jeff wrong. And because of that, not because somebody at UConn did her wrong, but because of the hurt and seeing that deep hurt and the injury that took place over a long period of time, she's like, I'm not going to take UConn. I'm going to show UConn, took Purdue and lost the pool. That's not like bombs going off. That's not like life-reckoning kind of stuff. But an injury from over 30 years ago to my friend Jeff led to his mom over 30 years later changing how she was going to do a pick because of that. That sphere of influence that we have, depending on how we feel and how we act, is more profound and more personal than sometimes we understand. But what does that have to do with the scriptures from the Gospel of John in Psalm 23 today? Well, let's dig into that a little bit. Verses 1 through 4. Very truly I tell you, anyone who does not enter through the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way, is a thief and a bandit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. And the gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice. And he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. Now let's get this out there right out of the gate. Jesus is the shepherd. We are the sheep. All right? Jesus is the shepherd. We are the sheep. Now, this is an analogy, right? This is a turn of phrase. So we are not exactly a sheep, right? They're just using the sheep as an analogy. We are not supposed to go around saying, oh, okay, we're supposed to be exactly like sheep and go around me and like, right? And putting on wool clothes and putting on like lamb's ears. I know that sounds silly, but this is what it looks like when people misfollow the Bible literally. Right? It looks as silly as people walking around saying, oh, we're supposed to take this parable and we're supposed to act like sheep, and so we're supposed to turn our ears, off, and we're supposed to just blindly follow somebody and turn our eyes off and turn our hearts off and turn our brains off and just go and be a sheep following blindly. And that's not what this is saying. It's just saying that we choose to follow somebody in life. Sheep choose who to follow. They don't follow just anybody. Sheep choose who to follow. And everybody follows something. There is not a single person here, there's not a single person who's ever been in the world who hasn't followed somebody. Everybody follows something or someone. No matter how high a leader you are up, there's always some guiding principle or something that's the anchor of what you are doing, the anchor of the principle and who you are following, the one who guides you both in good times and in bad times. But we don't start with the sheep themselves. We actually start with the ones who would be the leaders of the sheep. Very truly, I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way, is a thief or a bandit. These are the ones climbing in through another way. See, there's a gate. There's a proper way to enter the pen where all the sheep are, and there are some that are climbing in through another way. Now, back then, the terms thief and bandit in this context meant something a little bit more as well. It meant the trickster. It meant the tempter, otherwise known as the devil. right? Otherwise known as the devil. And Satan, the devil, the trickster, the tempter, whatever term you want to use, likes to come over the wall and try to be something else, to try to influence you. I know people are laughing at the drawings. That's part of the thing. I get it. It's not my best work, but you get the point. So anyway, so there's a big pen here, and there are all kinds of different shepherds' sheep, which is why there's a gatekeeper. And the shepherd, who is the good shepherd, comes by the gate because the gatekeeper knows them, because there are like 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 different shepherd sets of sheep there. Say that 10 times fast. Matt Hellman over there laughing at my drawings. But they got a gatekeeper who's coming in here and letting them out. And then you have Jesus here saying, all right, folks, let's go, follow me. And the shepherd knows the sheep by name. This is a real thing with shepherds. They know the sheep by name. Now it's not like they name them Jeff and Sean and David and Carolyn and Leslie, right? It's like, come on, speckle face, come on, white nose, come on, short tail, come on, long tail, that kind of thing. But they know them by name. And the sheep know that the shepherd knows them by name. And so the shepherd goes, let's go, whatever their name is. But they're also saying, let's go out. Let's go out. Jesus is calling the sheep out from the walls of the pen into the world where good stuff will happen, where there's grass and there's enjoyment and being able to just run around free for periods of time, but there's also danger. Right? Not just staying safe in here, they could just feed them here, but taking them out and leading them out into the world where there's good and there's fun and there's joy, but there's also wolves. Where there's also wolves in the world. So how do they know which voice to trust? How do they know which voice to trust? You see, in verse 5 it says, yes, the sheep will follow the voice of one, but they do not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of strangers. But how do you know whether the voice that you are hearing is the voice of a stranger? The only way to know if there is a voice that is the voice of a stranger is to know another voice. Is to have taken another voice and trusted it and know it, and then know that there is another voice as a stranger. If you do not have another voice that you are following, this is the territory, this is the vacuum that the trickster, that the tempter, that the devil loves to take when you have not picked who it is definitively that you are going to follow, who's going to lead you out into the world and help you when you have both the good things and the difficult things in front of you. And why do they trust that voice and follow it? Why do they trust that voice and follow it? Because they have before, and they know that shepherd has stayed with them in the good times and the bad and protected them, and they trust this shepherd, and so they will follow as a result. If there is a shepherd that abuses them, they will no longer follow them. But they know that this shepherd is true, and it is a voice that they know, and that they know that they can trust. But when you don't have one of those, and the trickster and the tempter can get in there, they love a vacuum. When you haven't already definitively found someone who's going to lead you in a good way, and then they fill in things, and there are terms and things that the tempter and the trickster loves to work in. And anger and fear are two of the most powerful. Anger and fear cause disorientation and can confuse us from being on a good path. And the trickster and tempter up here like nothing better than taking anger, mixing it in with fear, and then getting this complex compound to turn into rage. Because when we get really angry, and it's okay to get angry, angry is a normal emotional response that we all have. It is what we decide to do and who we decide to follow once we recognize we have the anger about what we're going to do next. Because rage can cause us to be blind. It can cause us to focus so much on the thing that hurt us or the person that hurt us and cause us to be hurt more and hurt other people in that process. Now, there's an antidote to this. There's an antidote to that, and this is forgiveness. Forgiveness, letting go of that anger so it doesn't consume you, letting it go so the anger doesn't get combined with fear, because people get fearful almost automatically as soon as they are angry, because if I am angry, it's normally directed at what? What is anger normally directed at? Someone else, right? People get fearful. Oh, they're not going to get what they deserve. Oh, I'm not going to get my justice for what they did. And all of a sudden, fear gets mixed in with that, and then get disconnected and disillusioned, and forgiveness can pull us back from that place when our enemy is right nearby us and allow us to be calm in the midst of that difficulty, at the table with our enemies, as it said in the 23rd Psalm. Forgiveness is the antidote to this, but when the tempters get their way, boom! The anger and the rage can begin to eat away and cause your heart to explode in a way that you are no longer yourself, whether that's temporarily, just in a moment of that rage or anger or fear where you act in a way that you wouldn't normally be your character or who you are, but in that moment you do, and that over time can change your heart and change who you are as a person overall. But the thing is that there is a blast radius to your anger. There is a blast radius to the consequences of the actions that you take because of your unresolved anger and fear and rage and disorientation. And that impacts your friends, that impacts your family, and that impacts, because it impacts your friends and family, it then goes on to impact other people. There is a blast radius to your rage and to your unresolved anger and to your unresolved fear. And that eventually circles back and comes back to get you again. Not because of the thing that happened, but because of your unwillingness to let go of the anger and to let the forgiveness and following the Good Shepherd who wants you to live abundantly, and instead following these tricksters' paths and being stuck in that trickster's path that not only has the blast radius of consequences for other people, but eventually comes and gets you, not just the first time, but the second time as a result. See, the thief in verse 10, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy, to steal your hope that there's any other life than this anger and fearful, disoriented, discombobulated life that you lead now, to steal away your hope that forgiveness actually works, to steal your faith that following this way can actually work, to destroy your peace that this can work. And then, once they've got you there, once the trickster and tempter has you there, then the wolves show up. Then they send the wolves to scatter you so that you feel alone and don't feel like you have people around you who love you and support you, because people have withdrawn because of the way you're acting and the consequences you've had around them. And you end up angry and fearful and alone, and there can be no more dangerous place than that. And that is when the false shepherd then leaves you. Afraid, angry, with the wolves surrounding you, alone. But Jesus says, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. Laying down your life is a phrase that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to die. It means you're willing to risk for other people. It is a form of sacrificial love, where you are willing to give up something that you want. Because some people want to hold on to that anger. Some people want to hold on to that sense that I'm going to hold on to this so I can be mad at this person, so when I see them the next time, I can show them. When the thing that leads you beside the still waters is letting that go so you can be right there at the same table, right there in the same room with no anger at all, showing them that you're fine and that they could be right next to you and you don't care, that they don't mean anything to you anymore, they don't have any influence over you anymore, that they're irrelevant in your life because you're going to be moving forward with the Good Shepherd in a way of forgiveness and peace and calm beside the still waters with the enemies at your table. I remember Jeff and his mom. Jeff and I talked just a little while ago. He's like, Sean, because he doesn't call me Pastor Sean. Say, Sean, the thing that hurts me the most about all this now is that 30 years later, my mom was hurt by my lack of forgiveness. That my mom ended up changing her thing. No, it didn't lead to bombings. It didn't lead to all kinds of things. But that my anger, my lack of forgiveness had a consequence on my mother over 30 years later. And he's one of the more forgiving people I know. But you can see this play out in so many other places in the world. Maybe you've seen this play out in your own life. You can certainly see it play out in the United States and on the world stage. As the sheep who get to decide where we're going to follow, what is so important to remember is that Jesus knows you. Just like the shepherd knows the names of the sheep, Jesus knows you. Each and every one of you. And is saying, wherever you are in this moment right now, whether you're in a great place or whether you're in a difficult place, if you have something you're trying to resolve and you're feeling like you're in chaos, or fear is going to be taking over your life, or anger is going to be taking over your life, or you're feeling like you have a disoriented place where you are, follow me. I will show you the way out. I'm not going to let you stay in your room. I'm not going to let you stay in the four walls of your church. I'm going to take you out, and the wolves will be out there, and we're going to deal with them together. And by dealing with them together, it's not going to make the wolves go away. It's not going to make the challenges of life go away. But it's going to heal your heart. And it's going to reduce the blast radius of the things that have happened to you, leaving others more free to be able to help you and love you, and for you to be in community, and a community of faith that will be there with you when you are hurting and afraid and feeling like you might be left all alone. You will not be left alone if you follow me. You'll feel the peace of being beside the still waters. You will feel your soul restored. And even though you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you will not fear, because I will be with you and I know your name. No matter what is happening around you. Your job is to choose who you are going to follow and how you are going to follow them. And then when you choose to follow them, whether you're going to take this guy seriously about what the antidotes to the difficult things in our lives are, because there's no point to pretending if you're not going to do what it says, because it doesn't work. This stuff is hard, but it works. And it will lead you to peace. It will lead you to love. It will lead you to contentment. Not because all of a sudden everything's okay, but in the midst of anything that happens, you will be okay if you follow him. Now, Dell, if you would please bring back the 23rd Psalm up, and I'd like together to finish this message with us saying this together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Anoint me with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.